Hey, welcome back to Ferrigno Freedom channel for those of you who are returning, and for those of you who are here for the first time. My name is Dante Ferrigno, and I've been doing a carnivore diet known as the Lion Diet now for a little over 3.5 years, and it has just done miraculous things for my body, for my physical state, for my mental state, and even my spiritual life has improved as a result of the changes. It's really amazing what it's done. But those are all videos for another time. What I'd like to talk about today, especially for those who have been watching me for a while now, you'll know that I typically don't like to dip my toe too far into the political realm because my focus has always been on getting people healthy, getting people to get their lives under control by getting all the poison out of their life, whether that's a carnivore diet or some other thing that's going to get you away from all the ultra-processed food, the sugar, the seed oils, the things that I've been preaching about now for 3 years that have done so much damage to my body over the first 48 years of my life, that a carnivore way of living has changed in the past 3.5 years. And now I'm about to turn 52 years old, whereas at 48 years old, I felt like I was at that point where I was ready to give up. I mean, I was really ready to die. And now at 52, I have a totally different outlook. I feel like I'm starting over again. My mother used to say to me that she felt like her life started at 50. And I thought, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. But now I can relate to that in a way like I never thought I would be able to, because I got my health back. And that is all thanks to a carnivore way of eating. So it might be something you'd be interested in looking into if it's something you've never considered. But it doesn't change the fact, regardless of which diet, is I really believe that food can be your medicine. If you're eating the right things, it can change all the medicine that you need. I don't need medicine anymore like I used to, and that's because I've changed the way I eat. But when it comes to politics, the thing that I've usually found is talking about it doesn't usually accomplish much. We're usually talking to an echo chamber. We're talking into the same choir that we've been preaching to, and they're agreeing with everything I say, and I'm agreeing with everything they say, and the people on the other side of the aisle aren't paying much of attention. Well, in this situation, I find it interesting because Robert Kennedy Jr. is somebody that really wasn't on my radar. One, because I don't pay a lot of attention to politics anymore. What I find worth talking about when it comes to politics are ideas, things that people are willing to talk about that actually make a difference in people's lives. And just like I personally believe that when it gets personal for you about health, you're going to do what it takes to get yourself healthy, and you have an option to get off of all this junk. It's going to be the thing that I think saves us, is that we've got so many people who are sick and fat and unhealthy and uncomfortable in their lives because of the damage that the food we're eating does to us, that if we can turn that around at the lower levels, we'll actually change the whole paradigm from the bottom to the top. But every once in a while, somebody comes along like RFK and is actually taking a look at things that would be the solution that I'm talking about. And that's encouraging, because the current system that we have now with regard to healthcare, food, and how government plays a role in all of that seems to have us completely set up to fail. And even for people who would like to get off the treadmill that they have us on, where we get sick from the food, we go to see the healthcare community, they don't actually have any solutions. The government's paying for it. The government's taking money from the taxpayers to pay for it, and it seems to be just sending money to people who do not have our interests at their heart. They only have the interest of profit and power. Well, here we have somebody who's talking about getting America healthy again. And I think America, as a leader in the world in many ways that it is, should be taking this lead, because it's probably the most unhealthy of all the countries out there right now when it comes to the foods that we eat. Now, I know in the European Union, they've made illegal certain things that we still eat in our food. I'm not a big fan of banning things and using that as a tactic, but I think that there is a solution to dealing with this evil system that we have in place right now. My problem with banning anything is it really depends on who's in charge. And there's always going to be somebody bad coming down the road in charge, somebody that doesn't agree with what you agree with, and then suddenly the things you think are good are now being banned. So I don't like the idea of giving to government the power to ban things, but I think that contract law plays a big role in how we stay healthy. If we were able to look at, say, for instance, the way an insurance policy is held to contract law, it has to be enforced exactly as it is. If the insurance company, for instance, doesn't do their part in the policy, then they're going to get sued and wind up paying the people that are supposed to be paid. And if the person who's insured doesn't follow the rules, then they're not going to get paid. You know, there needs to be some kind of enforcement there. And what I see a lot going on is that the food that we eat is being told to us by these manufacturers that it's perfectly healthy. As a matter of fact, it's good for your heart. It's good for this. It's good for that. And it's not. That should be a violation of contract law, because you kind of make a contract when you tell somebody something and then they buy your product based on that knowledge, and that knowledge is not true, then there's a violation there, and you should be able to sue that company for what they're doing. And if that was the case, then these companies wouldn't be able to get away with this stuff. But there's nobody enforcing anything like that. And I'm not saying that that's what RFK is going to do. I just wanted to take a closer look at what he is going to do. And I saw this video that had Tucker Carlson and Russell Brand watching RFK's fight against Big Pharma and the elites. And I thought we would take a look at it. I don't know why the thumbnail says he seems liberated, but I figured we could find out together. Because ever since RFK has come out on the side of Casey and Callie Means and the fight that they're taking against Big Food and Big Pharma as whistleblowers who were in those two industries, it's very exciting to see. For me, to be able to see somebody actually addressing an issue that is the root of a lot of the issues in this country. So let's take a look at this video.
Bobby, like you, seems like one of those people who had to give up a lot to follow his conscience. And he does seem liberated in a way. He seems like he's crossed some line where he had to do the most unpopular thing, and in so doing, he became kind of a different person. That's the feeling I get from, I just saw him last week and I was really struck. He seemed...
The truth will set you free. When you stick with the truth, it sets you free. I think that would kind of explain why he seems liberated. He is. He's sticking to what he knows the truth is.
He's different. He just seems like liberated.
Well, yeah, I watched that episode of your show, and he was so lucid and articulate when he spoke about nature and our connection to nature and his own love of nature. Even though, well, formally, you know, I think you guys like to hunt stuff, don't you? And I know I do not judge Americans for hunting. I've had that argument, and I'm never having it again.
Well, but to be clear, we hunt and release.
You release them.
Just kidding.
You release their wee corpses. Fly. Oh. Non-judgment. No judgment, no higher tribunal than him. No point in arguing. I'm not arguing with anybody at all. It's most liberating. But yeah, to your point, I think that your recent interview with Bobby, your interview with Callie Means has been fantastic. Callie Means' contribution to the conversation about health and nutrition has been invaluable and transformative.
Callie Means is in this room, by the way. Should I don't know. And I don't know where he is because I don't have my glasses on, but I just ran into him. And anyone who doesn't know about Callie Means and his sister Casey Means, that is worth a Google search. And their new book is a transformative book, and I think it will change the country.
Wait a minute, there he is. He's drinking Coca-Cola full of Callie! He's drinking seed oils right now. Oh, Callie. Not another hypocrite. Yeah, he's pretty fantastic, isn't he? So I suppose, look, you know, when I'm doing my own show, what I'm continually saying is because I still have the sort of remnants, a kind of Pompeii of former, or of liberal friends, the sort of frozen there in time. I sort of,
Wait, I'm sorry. Did you just say I have a Pompeii of former liberal? That's like so brilliant. I just have to stop and acknowledge how great that is. That's unbelievable. People frozen in place at their dinner table.
That is what I was trying to do with language.
It's so good.
Because I'm like, how can it be? How can you consider this to be an advocacy for freedom? How can the word liberalism, a word that's so, the etymology of it is so interwoven with freedom, how can it mean more and more state power? How can it mean more and more advocacy for war? How can it mean more and more deification of celebrity and empty, vapid language? How can it be more and more condemnation of ordinary people, more superciliousness and haughtiness and damnation? How can it be but only the most superficial nod to kindness and compassion, but a negation of the deepest compassion and love? How can it be? That's why I came up with that Pompeii thing. Thank God you appreciated it.
I loved it. So I guess what I'm interested in the Bobby thing. I love Bobby Kennedy personally. I think he's sincere, for real, and I think his love of nature and his description of why we love nature. We love nature because it's the highest expression on the planet of beauty, because God created it, and so we should preserve it and we should enjoy it. And the same goes for animals. I feel that way strongly. But it does seem like his entry into this, he could have just dropped out, you know, or he could have endorsed the party that his family has been associated with for over 100 years, but he didn't. They didn't want him, by the way, but I don't think he'd do it anyway. It does seem like the moment that you've been talking about since I started watching you, about this kind of convergence of people on the basis not of party identification, but the basis of what they really believe. Shared values, shared interests. And that should be the basis of any movement. We're together because we have something real in common, not something fake, like a label, but something.
Hey, it's Dante Ferrigno. I just wanted to thank you first of all for watching this video, but I also wanted to tell you about my merch shop. I have a link in the description for a bunch of different items I've put together for you to be able to show your support for the carnivore lifestyle, and every purchase helps me to keep doing what I'm doing here on Ferrigno Freedom. I think that's one of the things I love about this whole situation right here, especially just looking at these two men on stage, knowing where they've come from, because I grew up seeing Russell Brand movies. I thought he was a moron. I mean, I thought he was an absolute idiot. I didn't really like watching his movies, but sometimes I would find humor in him too. Like, he just has a personality that's attractive, but the things he would do and say were just like, oh my gosh, it's so crazy. Tucker Carlson, total opposite, as far as like he would go too far with a lot of the things that he would believe, and I'd be like, man, you're so stringent in your viewpoints, and I really didn't care for Tucker Carlson all that much either. But they come from such different backgrounds, and then just seeing RFK and Trump come together, and then also seeing Tulsi Gabbard join in, it's encouraging to me to see people with different backgrounds and the way they think coming together on things that we can all agree on, which is we're being poisoned by this food system that we have. We're on a treadmill with the medical system we have, and government is exacerbating all of it with the subsidies that they give to wheat farmers and corn farmers and for making all the stuff that's killing us. And then also the way the government supports all of the things that go on in the healthcare industry by mandating certain guidelines that they have to follow that have us on this treadmill of getting sick all the time. And then also all the way the news media gets involved in that with the advertising that the pharmaceutical companies do. Like, it's this huge cash cow for all these parts that are involved, the people in government, the people in the media, because the pharmaceutical companies are paying them huge bucks to make sure that they stay at the position that they're in, that they're getting favorable treatment with laws with regard to new medicines. We have a behemoth of a mess in front of us, but the only way I ever see that coming together where there's going to be an undoing of that is going to be people of different backgrounds saying, you know what, I'm not willing to argue about the stuff that doesn't make any real difference. I want us to come together on the things that actually will make a difference. And I'm just greatly encouraged by seeing what I'm seeing right now. It's been a long time since I've been encouraged by what I've seen. I've heard a lot of talk about things in the past, but I never really saw people coming together like I'm seeing right now. And that's what I'm hoping for, something good to come from all this, is people actually coming together on ideas that are actually good for people.
Real, like a temperament, a goal, a dream, an aspiration. And it does seem like that's happening finally, maybe.
I would think so, because he's an extraordinary character to incorporate into that movement. And I think it will be very difficult to come up with continual condemnation to such varied characters. Trump, it's easy for them to condemn him indeed as a misogynist, or to continue the lawfare. Bobby Kennedy, oh, he's a kook, he's a crackpot. He seems to think that the pharmaceutical industry have some interest beyond your wellness and your general health. The mad conspiracy theorist. Like, what are they going to summons up about Tulsi Gabbard? I mean, as these sort of, you know, what is it going to be? They don't like that streak in her hair. That's the sort of thing a supervillain would have. She's a lady Zod, they may say. General Zod, Superman 2. Sorry, it was obscure. I'm just wondering how the sort of the creeping condemnation and the lack of clarity. When I watched that DNC and its sort of giddy excitement for celebrity, which, by the way, when I was the recipient of it, I would have happily sort of guzzled down like a narcissist nitwit. Easier to observe its ridiculousness on the outside. But
that's awesome.
There was a fella that came out, you'll know his name, but he was a sort of a somewhat portly billionaire, and he was called something like Prieskrig or something like that. And he came out to say sort of like, you know, Trump's not a billionaire, I'm a better billionaire. You know, he said something like that. But just before Bernie...
What a message.
Just before Bernie Sanders had been out saying, all billionaires of every hue and persuasion should be stopped. And then that guy came out and said, there's good billionaires and bad billionaires. And I thought, oh, no, they don't have any sort of central defining argument, just the desire to win an argument. And that's what happens, I suppose, when politics has been captured by the donor class and the lobbyist class. I wonder when we will see donations extracted entirely from politics, the profession of lobbying entirely removed, ameliorated, annihilated. Radical decentralization, radical federalization. I wonder when, because surely at some point the possibility would exist to have the experiment that I understand your founding fathers were interested in. Unique experiments in republicanism or democracy. You can use whatever term, don't offend anybody. But you could have principalities that were responding to the will of the people. And if the people are guided by God, if all of us are attempting on our own, not on our own, but through ourselves and through our community to connect with God, then it's more likely that we will create communities and states and nations and a planet of peace and prosperity from the bottom up, not from the top down. Not like the imposition of power structures. You can see its homogeneity on every matching high street or main street. You can see that it's landed on our cultures. It's no different really in my country. We have a similarly globalist leader, an authoritarian who claims to care, who wants to protect you from you. Yet another Macron, Trudeau, Starmer, these kind of characters that come out often with wonderful haircuts to tell us that they care for us, and they care for us so much that we have to remain in our homes and cover our mouths, and we mustn't travel more than 15 minutes. And you sort of get the sense that some dreadful revelations like Mark of the Beast is about to be implanted under your hand, all for your safety, of course, you understand. And I feel like, can't we I'll look after myself, it's all right. I don't need your continual care. I don't want to be medicated and cared for so aggressively.
That's exactly what I was talking about. That's what I love about his personality, is especially when he's on something where he's really nailing it. Even though he used to talk about everything on the other side of the aisle that way, it's so nice to see that he's able to use that genius ability to speak that he has to point out exactly what I was talking about beforehand, to see that from different perspectives, to be on the same talking point of talking about getting people from the bottom to change things. It's not about who's at the top as much as it is what we're doing at the bottom. Are we taking it seriously every day, the responsibilities that we have to live the truth, to eat well, to be healthy, to teach others to be healthy, to not buy into all the systems and schemes that have been come up with by people in big food, big pharma, and government to keep us all running around chasing our tails? You can be free of that. Getting healthy is such a huge part of that by getting off of the treadmill, getting off of the system that they've built up around us. Once we go down this government healthcare route, they essentially own your body. And I don't want them having control over my body. When I say them, I mean anybody. I do want people who are going to come in and take a stand for the things that are good for us and hopefully be able to turn back some of the insanity trail that we've gone down when it comes to big food, big pharma, and government. There are a lot of other issues that need to be addressed, but I can't see how fixing your health shouldn't be number one, because without your health, what have you got? And the whole thing we've been sold about health all this time is counterproductive to you actually getting healthy. This whole notion of something being for free is costing us not only our money, but also our health. And we've got to get back to where we take control of it. I still think the most important thing that we can do is make sure that you're not supporting people who don't have your best intentions at heart. Companies that profit off of making you sick, fat, and unhealthy. Companies that profit on maintaining your unhealthiness by not actually treating the root cause of your problem, but keeping you on a steady dose of medicine that's going to make you feel a little numb to what you're doing and not actually make you any better. Stop giving them your money. Every dollar you spend on junk food and medical care that you don't need because it doesn't actually solve anything is a vote for the things that are tearing us apart. Spend your money on things that are going to get you healthy. And I'm not saying you have to be a carnivore, but I'm telling you that the carnivore way of eating has absolutely changed my life with that regard and my whole perspective on so many things. And now I find a liberation from all of the stuff, all of the food, all of the comfort seeking that has brought me to the point where when I was 48, I was ready to die. And now at age 51, I feel like I'm starting over life afresh, and I'm not held captive by this system that has been built up around us for people seeking the easiest way out, seeking something for free, seeking something that's a panacea that these politicians can't deliver. I'm glad to see there's somebody out there that's willing to take a stand for us. I was kind of hoping they would actually show some footage of Bobby Kennedy here, but I may have to take a look at some more of his stuff to see exactly what direction he's going with how he's going to fight this. I'm just glad somebody's taking it seriously. Well, that's all I've got for this one, guys. I appreciate you joining me here today. Stick around for a quick message from one of my affiliates, as anything that you spend when you see these affiliates on my channel does support the work I'm doing here to try to share this information about not only the carnivore way of eating, but about getting people healthy, about getting people back to actually being able to exercise and to take on the difficulties of life, not feeling like they can't do anything about it, but realizing that they actually have the power to change things in their own life by changing what they spend their money on and what they choose to put in their mouth. I'll see you next time.
If we pay extra, could we maybe get some grease or fat?
One of the things I do to fight back against big food and big pharma is to recommend companies that make animal-based products that are good for our bodies and good for our skin. In this case, I'm talking about Vintage Tradition. Vintage Tradition tallow balms are a go-to for me now, especially the unscented one. I like it because it doesn't have anything extra in it other than extra virgin olive oil and tallow rendered from suet. This is the interior fat, also called suet or kidney fat. For the tallow they use making the tallow balm, highly saturated and therefore more therapeutic than any other. They don't use any trim fat or any other fats besides suet. So if you want some ancestrally appropriate skincare products that are going to help support the carnivore movement, head over to vintagetradition.com and use my discount code Dante, D-A-N-T-E, to save 10% on your order. I promise you won't regret it. Their products are fantastic. I love them and I use them all the time.